We have about 2 minutes, 2 minutes until showtime. Just go ahead and start filling up the chat room. A lot of great stuff for you tonight, that's for sure. All right. We have about 2.5 minutes to showtime. Just go ahead and fill up the chat room. We'll get started. We have a lot of great stuff to cover tonight. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but the weather is climate change here. Tessa heard me on Forum Borealis. Wow, that's great. Good evening, Tony. How are you? See everyone out there. Lots of important information tonight, so don't miss out. Stuff you need for the month of February. Okay, now we have 2 minutes. I misread the studio clock, so we have about 2 minutes. Plenty of time to show up in the chat room, ask a couple of pre-show questions. I know he says it's freezing here in Massachusetts. Well, it's pretty cold here too. You know, I was out in the man cave, and I had to turn the fire on. I had to put some socks on. That's like really cold in the man cave here. It was about 40 or 38 or something. Seems like it's raining on the entire eastern seaboard. Bruce is saying it's raining in New Jersey. It's raining in Washington State. Hey, there's some D-Live people. Wild Boar 3000. See you. Falcon 80th. Good thing you're here. We're going to give away some more lemons tonight. It should be good. Disgusto. What do we do now, Brooks? Well, that's why you tune in. Oh, what to do. Not going to play any of the network news. Don't want it on my feed. Don't want the negativity. Negative waves. Don't want any negative waves. Everything we bring you tonight is going to be important information. Some of it is a little alarming, but that's why you tune in here, so that you don't panic and go running out in the streets with your hair on fire. You'll know what to do. You'll know when to do it. Just stay out of the way. Cannon Sanders, good to see you out there in D-Live. D-Live audience is growing. I'm really satisfied with it. It's coming right along. All right, let's give it 10 seconds, and then we'll sign the studio in. How about that? Does that sound pretty good, guys? Sign the studio now.
Biden signed executive orders Tuesday that the White
This
House
is
says
the
will
Truth
undo
Frequency Radio Network. TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
First hour. All right. All right. Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You are safely traveling with us. Yes, we are live tonight. We are streaming to you from the America Free Radio studios through the Truth Frequency Radio Network, which is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. And we're also streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and DLive. We're no longer streaming on the T Word because they canceled my account. And Twitch, LinkedIn canceled me too. So I guess we must be over the target somewhere. But we're so glad that you're here with us tonight. Now, the way this program works is a 3-hour program tonight. We take a break every 30 minutes, and I consolidate all the chats onto one screen. So I can see you, whether you're on YouTube or Twitter or Twitch, or it doesn't matter. I can see all your chats, and I can respond to you, probably not in writing, because it's difficult to talk and write at the same time. Can I mamu dog face in the banana patch? Or I can respond to you orally over the airwaves and over the restreams that we're doing right now. Now, we could add more channels, but a lot of the other channels are, well, some of them are in foreign countries, and some of them are more pointed toward gaming. DLive used to be 100% gaming. We were one of the pioneers in podcasting on DLive. There were 2 or maybe at the outside 3 podcasters going at any one time, if you were lucky, on DLive. Now there are many more. We have brought lots of our friends after the purge with us, and they're doing much better on DLive than I am. Of course, they were doing much better than I was with YouTube anyway. I've got about 12,000 followers on YouTube, but only about 80 show up here. Not sure why. Maybe the notifications aren't working, but the more you smash that like button during the program, the better it shows up with YouTube, and maybe they will let more of my subscribers actually see me. It would be nice. It would be really nice. We're also trying to get to the next threshold on Twitch, so if you like Twitch, I love Twitch. Twitch is awesome. Sometimes during the day, when I'm at work on a spreadsheet or some blueprints or something like that, and it's really quiet and in the cubicle, nothing's going on sound-wise, no one's calling me or anything like that, I'll put Twitch on in the background, and there are these wonderful artists who will play their guitar, play their piano, and sing. Sometimes it's original stuff, sometimes it's cover stuff. But it's very entertaining, and if you subscribe to them rather than just follow them, they actually get about $3.99 a month. Of course, Twitch shaves a little bit off of that, but that's how Twitch makes money, and it's smart. It's smart, but there are COVID wives and COVID lock-ins, unemployed, all over the country, all over the world, and they're sitting in Twitch at home making money. They're making a couple $1,000s a month, enough to pay the rent or the condo payment or whatever, and get some groceries in the house. And the more you can help them out, the better. And the same goes with TFR. The folks at TFR rely on subscriptions, and you don't just get Truth, you don't just get America Free Radio. You get all of the hosts, 37 excellent hosts on TFR you get access to with one monthly fee. And it's cheap. It's like a cup of coffee a month or something. It's crazy cheap. Yes, Pavel says, any new book coming for 2021? Yes. I am working on the sequel for Charm of Favor. Charm of Favor lends itself to a sequel. There may be 3 or 4 books in this series. This book is very high intrigue, and it's espionage, and it's on the level of Charm of Favor, but you remember sort of woven through the book is a little supernatural stuff. You remember Mr. Knorr and all these enigmatic characters that seem to be much older than what their bodies are belying. And yes, exactly. There's that supernatural level to Charm of Favor because there's, yes, a paranormal side to it, but there's also a sort of angelic side to it. And so this novel takes that up a notch, and the next one will be even more in depth than that. So you're taking a journey. You're taking a journey with me and my multiple personalities. So yes, Pavel, there is another book on the way. And by the way, if you have bought my books off Amazon, and many thousands of you have, and they're not autographed, I can fix that. Because I created this. This is a signature card. It says, "The present from the future." But you see this blank space right here? This blank space is where I can sign it. And the back of it has a peel off. You could peel it off and you can stick this right inside your book. And now you have an autographed copy of the book, even though you bought it off Amazon. And these are free. I will send it to you for free. All you do is pay for the postage, and I might throw some other stuff in there too. And fear not, those people that bought armbands, I got another shipment in. These are a little larger. These are more the adult wrist instead of the little child wrist ones that I got before. So this is how you get your conversation started. It says "The present from the future." And these are genuine imitation rubber. And you can slip them on your wrist and wear it to your next party or on your next date or your next possible date. What do we call that? I don't know what you call that these days, possible date. But anyway, it gets the conversation started. And then right off the bat, people will know you're weird. And this is good. This is a good place to start. What Cannon Sanders on D Life says, "Call me." What do you mean call you? I don't call people on this program. Well, I do if you're a guest, but they call me, and the phone number's right there at the top. See that 213-233-3998? That's how you call in. And I monitor the call board, and we can have a conversation about anything. Really, you can ask me anything. Before Google, I am. All right. We do treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance here. So let's get started. We have a lot of stuff to go through. First, I want to talk about bacteria. I know. We get a lot of bad news about bacteria. Bacteria gets a bad rap. But as it turns out, we have a two-sided relationship with bacteria. If it wasn't for bacteria, you would die because you wouldn't be able to digest any of your food. Bacteria, what we call bugs in the gut, in the top part of your gut, in the bottom part of your gut, they actually help process the food, and the bacteria help break down the nutrients, the complex things in food, to simple nutrients that your body needs. Same thing with cows, same thing with vultures. Any animal that consumes plants or animals needs bacteria in the gut to be able to break this stuff down. And Cannon Sanders says, "Call me." He says, "That was to whomever warned me about Telegram selling phone numbers." Yeah. Telegram is an online app. It's sort of like WhatsApp or Proton Mail. And you could do phone calls through Telegram. I have done it. It's a little VoIP. That means voice over IP. But it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. And like any other online app, it's been exploited by people who exploit things like that. And they sell phone numbers and sell contacts. And pretty soon, before too long, you get ads like, "Hey, send me money. Hey, this political campaign. Hey, we do a 500% match today. Hey, your package is on its way, but it got stopped somewhere along the way. We need to find your house. Click on this link." Don't ever click on that crap, okay? All that stuff comes through. Yes. Okay, Tessa, I get it. Tessa 1111, I guess that's the proper way of saying it. By the way, that usually means I'm heading in the right direction. She's using the proper term. The proper term is probiotics. We call it gut bugs. Gut bugs are what you need to get through your day. And on the one hand, these are, of course, the source of disease. We have gram-positive bacteria that we don't get along well with at all. Gram-positive means in biology, we sometimes want to look at or distinguish between different bacteria that we're looking at, and so we will do what's called a gram stain. It's an optical stain that gram-positive bacteria have an affinity to, and they turn blue. So you drop the gram stain in there, and what happens is the gram-positive bacteria show up blue, and that way you're able to tell if the sample that you're looking at is badly infected with a bad bacteria, a bacteria that will make it very sick, like pneumonia or E. coli or something like that. And it has to be virulent E. coli. Not all E. coli is gram-positive, but when it gets that way, it's a big problem. On the other hand, some 40 trillion bacteria, that's a lot. That's a lot. Like this, that's why we don't have to worry about an alien invasion, because we have trillions of bacteria that float around in our water, our soil, our air, everything we touch, everything that we ingest, of course. And we swim through this all day long with immunity, because we have a highly sophisticated, multi-layered immunity system that helps us live in symbiosis with most of these bacteria and fight off other bacteria. That's why we don't walk around infected all the time. If we did, the human race would no longer be here. But that being said, no other race from another world who hasn't evolved with that immune system could survive one day in this. They could not. They would have to develop an immunity just like we do. And some estimates suggest that our human bodies, by weight, are something like 90% bacteria, 10% human. Okay, the difference between a cell and bacteria is a cell has a nucleus. Bacteria does not have a nucleus. It still divides and everything, but all of the genetic material are actually in the protoplasm. So there are many of these fellow travelers that help us break down our food. They also can affect our emotions. Oh yeah, we are affected. Our emotions are affected by the bacteria or the bugs we have in our system. It's the bugs in our eyelashes that spook me. Actually, the eye is a pretty amazing. It's open all the time to everything. And the eyelids are very quick. Like if you're sawing away, which sometimes I do, and a sawdust flicks up through the air at supersonic speeds, it approaches the eyes will close in time to keep the sawdust from striking the very delicate eyeball that obviously you don't even want to touch your eyeball, let alone have anything else touch it. But it is constantly coated and washed with a wet tear-like, tears. And tears are highly antibiotic. Oh yes, they kill just about anything that falls into it, and they wash off any foreign debris. That's why the very thin membrane that covers the eye, light will actually pass through it, and it will last for hundreds of years. Well, most people don't live beyond 120, but it will last for hundreds of years. The skin on the outside of the eye, it's the lens that doesn't last very long. It ends up getting damaged by the UV light coming through it. That's called cataracts or glaucoma. And you can fix it sometimes. You can go in and replace the lens, and then the lens will correctly refract light against the cornea, against the optic nerve layer in the back. I don't want to use all these biological anatomical terms because not everybody that watches this is skilled in such things, but it switches. The image actually reflects upside down on the back of your eye, and your brain turns it right side up, and that's why, even though you're walking on the ceiling, you're actually walking on the floor, basically. Anyway, these fellow travelers are good for us, most of them. Some of them are not, and we have a tendency to want to kill them all off in medicine. So when we see somebody that has, they're sick, they come in, we take a blood sample, we take a urine sample, or other bodily fluid samples. And then what we do is we take a loop of this and we brush it onto a petri dish. A petri dish is just a shallow dish, and in the bottom of it is some chicken soup. You know what it's or what we call auger. It's basically chicken soup. It's just nutrients to help things grow. And then we put that in a conducive environment, usually about 98.6 with just the right amount of light. And we wait 24 hours and we see where it grows. And then, of course, it'll get coated with some fuzzy bacteria. But typically what we do as a medical technologist is we will drop what are called antibiotic discs. You know what a paper punch does, right? A paper punch punches out these little round circles, discs of paper when you punch them. Well, that's what a bacterial disc is, except we know, based on the number that's on the disc, exactly what antibiotic that is. And that could be, it could be amoxicillin, or it could be Keflex, or it could be a variety of things. We may put 30 discs on top of this auger. Then the next day when we come back, we look at how effective that bacteria has been pushed back. In other words, it's growing, and gets close to where that disc is kind of soaking into the auger, and it says, whoa, I'm not going any further. So what you have is the little round paper disc, and then you have a little round clear area, a clearing around that. And what we do as medical technologists is we look at which disc has the biggest clearing, and maybe the second biggest, and we let the doctor know. Oh, this bacterial infection that they have in their bladder or their ear or whatever, this is the antibiotic that's most effective against that bacteria. And then the doctor will call in a prescription for that, and they'll drop it in your ears or snort it up the nose or take it orally as an emulsion or a tablet, and then it will get in your system and the bacteria is wiped out. Unfortunately, a lot of times those antibiotics wipe out everything. It's a lot of collateral damage, just like napalm for bacteria. And sure, good bugs get killed off. And then what happens is that section of our body that was utilizing that bacteria, whether it's our lungs or whether it's our upper intestine, the small intestine that does all the crunching of the food, or the large intestine or the colon, this bacteria that exists in all these places, it also gets killed off. So it has to be replaced. And those are the probiotics and postbiotics and those kinds of things that we can take to replace those bugs. Now, previous research has demonstrated that bacteria could pass information back and forth. I know, sounds supernatural, but it's not. It's very similar to the way neurons, that's your nerves, and the synapses between the nerves, they're kind of like, air brakes or what we call capacitors. The saltatory conduction will go down the nerve, and then it needs to be amplified, or it needs to split off and go several different directions. So it will hit a neuron, and it will at the end of the nerve or the center of the nerve, and then it'll branch off into other directions, and you get a lot more information. Well, it seems that these bacteria forms what we call pores or ion channels, similar to what your computer has. Your computer has ion channels in it. When you make a chip, it is made by layering and coating boron onto silicon, and then it's layered into different sandwiches. And typically what happens is this is sort of a random process, but it's designed not to be random. We have in our chip manufacturing processes, depending on how many functions we want that chip to do, whether they're resistors or capacitors or transistors or memory sections like RAM or ROM or something like that, we have about a 12% yield. So in other words, we make 100 chips, 12 of them will actually work. There is some software out there, and it will allow you to design the chip the most efficient that it can be. It kind of makes the chip into a super chip, and it's becoming more and more and more effective. In other words, chips are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, but they are all designed based on these ion channels, just like bacteria, as it turns out. And these pass electrically charged potassium molecules between them. Nerves work off of primarily calcium. Calcium's also a positive cation that helps electrons flow through the body, and that way you can touch the ends of your fingers, and the impulse that touches the end of your fingers will go through the nerves to the brain and say, oh, I just touched my fingers. That's how it works. Same thing with bacteria, it turns out. It allows potassium-hungry bacterial cells on the inside of a biofilm to signal outer cells to stop scarfing up all the available nutrient. Now, what's amazing about the new research is that apparently bacteria in a biofilm can call out to other bacteria elsewhere in the body. Yeah, and it sends a sort of evite, like a message. I need this from you, liver, or I need this endocrine system, or I need this pancreas to come and join and strengthen the community. What happens is that the potassium ions don't stop at the biofilm's edge. They continue to spread outward. This team at UC San Diego, which is a very cool campus, UCSD, used to body surf down there and had a friend that went there. Didn't go there myself, but I used to hang out. He combined lab experimentation using microfluidic growth chambers and tracking dyes along with computer modeling. The researchers found that a species of Bacillus subtilis bacteria was able to recruit Pseudomonas aeruginosa through electric signaling. Yeah, I speak Bacillus, of course. Now, there may be much more complex interaction between various types of bacteria in the biome than was previously recognized since. I would say so. And this is a big change in the way we view these not so simple after all creatures. In terms of medical treatment, for example, the new understanding of how biofilms like staph infections come together could lead to figuring out how to break them apart. In other words, stop a staph infection on the bone, for instance. You scratch your foot or you stub your toe while you're out hiking, and you get a staph infection. It goes into your toe, gets on your bone, and starts going up your tibia or your fibula. You got a real problem. Now, it may even be possible that bacteria and human gut cells can interact electrically within the human gut. Now, there are some companies that understand this. Amare is one of these companies that understands this. They have a fantastic CEO. He does these wonderful presentations that talks about the science and the study of the science of gut bacteria and how important it is for all kinds of things like moods, ability to handle stress, ability to, of course, fight off disease, to combat obesity, and even to combat fatigue. So all kinds of ways to fix this. Now, it's not one size fits all, but it's one size fits most people. And with minor adjustments and some experimentation on your own, you can find a gut bug chemistry that works best for your body. And this work is going to continue to grow, these electrical-based biomedical approaches to controlling bacterial behavior and communities. Now, something that our community has known for a long time, you and people that have listened to this program, and even others, is that music and certain frequencies, when played at the proper amplitude, that is to say, loud enough to penetrate the body. We do know that, for instance, fetuses listen to the same music that the mother listens to because they can hear the music while they're, in the womb, developing. And the same thing happens with the human body. It listens. It pays attention to the frequencies that you're being exposed to. We have often talked about what is the main reason. A little bit of music. All right, I'll put TFR on hold. The main reason we go to church. I know. You go to hear the pastor. I get it. It's sort of like I only buy the magazine to read the articles. I don't look at the pictures. Everybody knows that's not true. We go to church because of the way it looks on the outside. We go to the church because a friend told us that this pastor or this priest or this preacher really has a good way about him, and he leaves you feeling good, explains things in a way you can understand it. I get all that. The Sunday school lessons are good. Going through the scriptures is good. All that's wonderful. But you could do that at home. You could do that on YouTube. The main reason that we go to church and we take our kids every Sunday is not to dress up and have the fashion show. Some places you come as you are. It is the vibration. It is the music that is played in certain keys with certain instruments, piano or organ or singing. And these frequencies have a tendency to cleanse the spirit. They have a tendency to make the ability to reflect upon one's activities for the past week more powerful. And once we do that reflection, we can say, oh, I really did this wrong, or I really didn't pay attention to the fact that I may have hurt this person's feelings. Or I learned something today about how to love someone else, or about how to fix this machine, or how to make this process work, how to break through this old habit that I have that I want to give up. And what we find is we make incremental progress on Sunday. Now, Monday, of course, we go right back to our old habits like a dog to its vomit, according to the scriptures. We do. But the temptation to return to your old habits, we know from the scriptures, is 7 times greater than the urge to move on without that vice or that temptation following us anymore. So it does take willpower. There's no question about that. And that's why we go. We go for the camaraderie, for the family, for the teamwork to help us overcome that. And hopefully they don't just put up with it and say, oh, that person has this problem, and we accept them with that problem. No, we want to overcome it. It's also the singing. It's also the vibration. And as it turns out, these frequencies may be medically sound now, because they're not just communicating with the mind or the mood or whatever it is you're going through in that week. It may also be communicating with the bacteria in your body, this huge population of symbiotes that live inside of you, live off of you, and provide you as a body, as a biological transducer, services that keep your body in good working order. I'm sorry, it's just true. So you become a better athlete, you become a better engineer, you become a better lover, you become a better parent, you become a better human being, more tolerant, more loving, more long-suffering, more charitable, because of the frequencies that you're exposed to. So we can choose to expose ourselves on purpose instead of by accident. Instead of just walking down the street and saying, oh, that music really sounds good, I think I'll go inside. No, we go on purpose, and we expose ourselves to this on purpose. Let's bring TFR back in now. A really quick announcement. Contact in the Desert. We have been telling you that it's June 4th, but it actually has changed now. So you need to go to my website, brooksagnew.com, click on upcoming events. It is now not going to be a live event. It is going to be a virtual live event. And that means it's going to be way cheaper for you to attend. And instead of limiting it to 8,000 people, we could have 8 million people if we want. And the presentations are going to be, well, they're going to be better in the sense that you can come in your pajamas, but they're also going to be not as good as being with everybody and feeling that energy in the room. But it's going to be the next best thing. This is the largest UFO conference in the world. And we know this month, in February, the information that President Trump declassified about UFOs is going to be released. All declassified. Everything our government knows about UFOs, about aliens, about spaceships, about contact with other worlds, contact from other worlds, it's all going to be made public. That's why you need to go to the website, brooksagnew.com, click on the upcoming events, and sign up. Contact in the Desert is going to be epic this year, epic. And the date has changed. I believe it's June 24th. But go there and check. I'll have this updated next week, so don't worry about that. On Wednesday, we'll have it changed. All right, so what else is going on? The Purge. Hang on. Let me make sure that we're not leaving everybody behind in the chat room. More Free Thinkers on DLive says, I understand what Brooks is saying. My church is where I live, in the hills. See? That's great. That's great. And if the weather permitting, you could take your shoes off and you can connect with the earth, with the mountains. And there's a vibration, there's a frequency with that. Yes, totally. What is that, Tessa? Like hearing Star Wars theme and the glow in your body. Now, Star Wars theme. Are you talking about Luke Skywalker's theme? You know, da 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 da. You talking about that one? Yes, that's Luke Skywalker's theme. And every time Luke Skywalker shows up, or his kid, or his mother, you hear this theme song. This is, yeah, they really do a good job with that. Everybody has one. Darth Vader, da 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 da. You know, everybody has their theme song that goes with it. That's the song you're talking about. Yes, each one delivers a frequency of. Wild boar, I'm not going to say that on the air. Not going to say that. Pajamas, as far as we go on this program, okay? Also, Sprach Zarathustra in 2001. Yes, that's a good one too. I don't think I can hum that one. Da-da. Yeah, I get it. I can name that song in 2 notes. Multiple rooms, virtual. That's a good question. Contact in the Desert sort of pioneered the multiple rooms conference. In other words, you have a schedule, and it's sort of like a movie theater with 24 theaters. There are movies playing in every single room all the time. So you can go watch one movie in one room and another movie in another room, but you can't watch 2 movies at the same time. So, and that's the problem with the multiple rooms, I think. If I'm speaking at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning and somebody else really interesting is also speaking at 10 o'clock Saturday morning, we take away from each other's audiences. Now, with 8,000 people there, you think, well, there's plenty of people. Yeah, there is. But, you can't also get 8,000 people in one room. Oh, I suppose you could if it was a big enough theater, and then just every hour put another speaker on. Well, think of it. You sit in that room for 8 hours, you get 7 speakers. You have to have time in between, for stuff. People got to take care of stuff. And then you come back and sit down. But, these places have 45, 50 speakers. Do you know how long you'd have to sit there to hear all the speakers if it was one room? So you see you got the problem. Now, I think that's the way they're going to do it this time. There are going to be multiple presenters on at the same time. We are working on the technology. I think this is all going to be on Zoom. So the video quality and audio quality is going to be great. And they're probably going to do a much better job of recording these so you can access it later. If you didn't get to see this person, you can buy the DVD or rent the DVD, or you can download the file and you can see it anyway. All this is still being worked out, and believe me, the team is working full time from now until the end of May to make sure this goes off flawlessly. It's going to be epic. It's going to be next generation. Yes, targeted vibration and frequency is the key. Brian, very, very good observation. Lady Peregrine says, my mother went to church because it was required. She always followed the rules. Yeah, well, there are churches that do require attendance. You become inactive, you're kind of shunned. You don't get the same benefits as you do if you go all the time, or if you don't pay your tithing or whatever. Yes, I understand all those rules. But that's a church trying to glorify itself, trying to make itself great. We go individually to get healed. We individually go to learn how to learn. Once we know how to do this with the frequencies, we could do it ourselves. Of course, the temptation is that we pick the wrong frequencies. We pick frequencies that are bad for us. We pick frequencies that are fun because the devil gets all the good music, right? I understand that. Mark Hovsepian is asking me, what do you know about infrared light therapy, 630 to 850 nanometers? That's not infrared. Infrared would be like 950 to 1100. That's infrared. You're in the green area. 630 to 850 is going to be argon, a kind of a green light. And there is something to be said about the specific frequency ranges, because there's been a lot of clinical work done with respect to treatment. And I'm not talking about communication or mood shifting. All that can be done. But what he's talking about is targeted healing. Like I have a tumor, or I have lung cancer, or I have something wrong with my blood chemistry. I want to fix that with frequency. There's been a lot of clinical studies done on that, and the results are out there. There's three things that happen with this, okay? Number one is can be a placebo effect, depending on the aura or the advertisement that's done with this, how much you believe is going to happen before you undertake these treatments. There is also the quality of the equipment and the way that it's applied to the body. Sitting in a room where they turn some speakers on may not be as effective as actually putting electrodes on the body, what we call transducers, and putting the pure form of the frequency directly into the skin. I've done this. It works really, really nice. You can do what's called entrainment. Entrainment is where the two halves of the brain either receive the same frequency or slightly different frequencies, and the brain then will resynchronize. It will relink up, or it will, not schizophrenically, but I mean it will connect in such a way that you get a health benefit from it. It can be mood altering, and it can be healing. And the third one is, I think, the frequency of the treatments. So you can't just go in one time and get this treatment, spend your $100 and walk out and feel much better. When it comes to chemistry and it comes to biology, we deal a lot in probabilities, and we deal in what are called normal distribution properties or normal distribution data or communities. Some of the cells are very highly infected. Some of the cells are very low infected. Neither of those are really involved in this process. The infected ones are going to die. The ones that are not involved are going to die. The ones in the center of the population, the average, is where what we want to affect. And we want to either shift the average, or we want to augment the average and let the tail conditions die out. there this means that we have to have often treatments, maybe every single day, maybe every single hour for a while. It depends on how acute condition is and how chronic it is. You may have to do something for the rest of your life to keep it under control, sort of like insulin, sort of like if you have, hepatitis C, or if you have, some disease like lupus that it's very difficult to cure, if at all. It can be cured, but it's difficult to cure. It's an abdominal inflammation that occurs mostly in women. And you can take medication to keep it at bay and make it livable, but lupus can stay with you for life. So those treatments have to be the right frequency, they have to be in the right setting, applied the right way, and at the right intervals. Let's put it that way. That's a better way of saying it. Do you ever feel that everything you've ever been taught is false? No, I don't. In fact, everything I've been taught is true in its own sphere. What I try to do is align the truths together to be functional. Okay, there's a truth of war and violence. There's a truth of justice. There's a truth of healing. There's a truth of patience. There's a truth is just something that is self-sustaining and exists on its own. That's a truth. To say that God is truth and Lucifer is everything false, that is not accurate. Lucifer is true evil, and he has a goal and an objective that he's trying to do with planets and with worlds and with human races and races of other beings. And he's accomplishing that by lying, by tricking you into choosing his way. Now, of course, he makes it pretty easy. He can make you rich, he can make you beautiful, he can make you famous and powerful. That's pretty easy to accept, don't you think? I mean, for a mortal life, it ain't bad to be a billionaire. It's not bad to be a triple platinum singer. But there are lots of great singers out there, better singers than the triple platinum singer. But they're not triple platinum singers because Lucifer got involved and worked his supernatural gifts on behalf of that person. But what did that person give up? Get that? It's sort of like a preacher who realizes at a very young age, not only is he gifted at speaking, but people fall down in front of him. People love to hear him. People will come from around the world to hear him and pay to hear him. And what happens is, when you preach for filthy lucre, is that Lucifer gets involved here and says, hey, this 10,000 square foot house, it ain't bad. And having a brand spanking new private jet, so that you don't have to, be around sinners on the airplane traveling. You don't want to really wear a mask while you fly, do you? You don't want to be, touched by people, when you're in the airport. Why not have your own private jet? Huh? And let's just pull it right up here to the house. I mean, that really shows that God is blessing you, right? Yeah, you can see what happens. The same thing that happens in every genre. And this really addresses Lady Peregrine's question more accurately. When you have a vision, when some truth is poured into your head and it leaps you ahead in your life, and maybe even leaps you ahead with your peers in your area of expertise, you become an even greater expert. Technically speaking, you didn't really do that. You received it, you used it, you were in tune with it, you got it, and you made advantage of it. But you know what it's about, right? It's, what have you done for me lately? What is your next act, my friend? I mean, when is the last time you had a spiritual experience anyway? Oh, well, I had one when I was 14 and I got saved. Dude, you're 46. 46. What have you done for me lately? You haven't had a spiritual experience in 32 years? Seriously? See? And what happens is you're seeking that experience. You go looking for it. You may find it. May not be where you expect to find it. And it may be even better than the experience before. And your fans may love it even more. They may buy your books, and they may come to your events, your concerts, or buy your autographed picture even more. And then what are you going to do? And now you see what happens. It's no longer the gift coming to you. It's you seeking the gift. And this is what happens in this genre. I could name names like would shock you. In the beginning, these people were brilliant. What they said was brilliant. The way they said it was brilliant. The time that they said it was perfect. But later, other things began creeping in. And they began to try to make a living out of all those people in the crowd, all those DVDs, all those personal appearances. They started making a living off of it. And then it became the living was the most important. And once that happens, you start listening to the critics. And then the critics say, well, he plays with his hair too much, or she sure could lose 20 pounds. I mean, all these things begin to creep in, and you begin to change in order to fit that attractiveness, in order to make it come to you. And that, Lady Peregrine, is when it becomes false. So as long as it's treated like a gift and humbly accepted like a gift, then you can move on, and the falsity doesn't creep in on you. Canon Sanders says the true great awakening on Telegram is pumping out disclosure. Could be. It's going to come a lot of different ways. It's going to come so many ways. It's going to be difficult to describe. I think that Contact in the Desert is going to be a place to really get a good dose of it, because most of the people that have been close to this, that have paid their dues on this, that have their areas of expertise, that had their experiences, they're going to bring this to you and be able to interpret it in the right way so you don't be deceived. Let's see here. Let's chat just a little. Gosh, a lot of chats here. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, got all those out of the way. Kelly, what is the key to the Sacred Heart? There's more than one key. What you're trying to do is open layers. Most people cannot take all of it at one time. They'll just crash. They'll crash because it's so bright. It's sort of like walking out of a movie theater after you've been in there in the bright sunshine. It's sort of like taking a toddler and beginning to feed it medium rare Black Angus beef. The body, whether it's the spirit body or the physical body, has to be brought along on layers first. When you read the scriptures, and I don't mean just picking up and reading from page 1 to the last page of the 66th book, you could do that. You could do that. Or you could take it subject by subject, or you can just read one writer over and over and over again. Read Isaiah a dozen times, or read Haggai a dozen times. You believe me, it's an exercise to do that. But I would say of all the people that I meet, and it's a large amount, I would say less than 1% of them, maybe smaller than that, I'd say less than 0.2% of them have actually read the Bible cover to cover. Less than 0.2%. Now, they may read in the Bible. They may know generally some verses of the Bible. I don't think they could repeat them word for word. They'd get some words wrong because it's been a while. But the issue here is that they've only peeled back one layer of the onion, maybe two. Over time, what happens is, and it doesn't happen by just sitting down and reading the Bible over and over and over again. It happens by reading the Bible and experiencing life. And then going back and reading the Bible and saying, oh, that's what that means. And then experiencing life. The Sacred Heart opens layer by layer. And oftentimes what happens is two hearts come together, male and female or whatever, come together, and they're too different. They're too different in brightness. And what will happen is the dark one will maybe attracted to the light one or maybe repelled by it. And the one that's very bright may see a wounded wing and want to help the darker one. But in essence, what's happening is you're dropping ice into water. Now the ice becomes warmer and the water becomes cooler, but they assume a new temperature. What I try to teach people is realize that you are a star. And realize that as a star traveling through space, the last thing in the world that you wish for is a wagon hooked to your star. In other words, somebody's going to hook you, connect a rope to that hook, connect the rope to a wagon, and they're going to sit back and they're going to let you pull them along. And one day you're going to realize, dang, I'm working hard. I am working so many hours. I'm not getting anywhere. Nothing. This breakthrough that I want is just not happening. No matter how hard I strain, I'm not moving. And you turn around and look behind you, and you see a big, thick knot of rope. Thousands and thousands of ropes. And they're all connected to thousands and thousands of wagons, and you're towing all these people along with you. And if you die, they all die with you. This is not a good condition. Not a good condition. What you want to do is do exactly what Jesus did. I don't mean live 3 years and die. That's not what I'm saying. Jesus told his apostles, in fact, he told people by the thousands, everything you see me do, you can do more. Jesus did not come here to teach us of his divinity. Could have easily done that. In fact, everybody accepted that the first time they met him, even the Pharisees. That's not why he came. What he came for was to teach us of our divinity. Yeah, he wanted us to learn who we are. We're not some bacterial infection on this planet. We earned the right to come here. Mortal life is an important step in the process of growing the Sacred Heart. The Sacred Heart is a process. It can end, you can reach, you can overcome everything. And what will happen, Kelly, is you will overcome everything and you'll return home after your mortal life or a mortal life, and you can then become a pillar in heaven, as it says in Revelation. I believe it's Revelation 12. Or it might be Revelation 3, but I think it's Revelation 12, where you can go and become a pillar of heaven to go no more out. I'm putting air quotes around this for those of you that are listening on audio. To go no more out means that you don't need another mortal life. You don't have to go back out. You don't have to go back into the flesh. You've overcome everything. You're ready to go to the next level. You have achieved the Sacred Heart. But the fact that you're here proves to me that you wanted to help others. You didn't have to come here. You were all finished. You were all finished. You understood everything. You've been through it all, seen it all, been a warrior, been a murderer, been murdered, been a lover, been hated. You've been through it all, and you overcome everything. You overcame it all. Why did you come back? You didn't come back for punishment. You came back to bless. That's the Sacred Heart. That's the Sacred Heart. You think Jesus had to come here? No. He came here to establish the resurrection in the Akashic record so that we could access it. He was the only one that could do it. He was the only one that could live a sinless life and open that gateway for us. Now we could all go through it. We all will go through it, good or evil. Yes. All right, let's see. Let's go on to the next story. The Purge. Let's see, we have a minute left. I can do this spec. We all saw what happened in Washington on the 6th. There were a variety of things because there were 500,000 people there. I was one of them. I was there. I was north of the Washington Monument, between the monument and what's known as the Ellipse. At the other end of that mall is Congress. Now, there was a group inside our 500,000 people, easy to hide in a group that size, that had designed, some weeks ahead of time, that they were going to go try to get inside Congress and cause havoc. I don't mean burn the place down, but I mean they were going to, spray paint the place if they could. They didn't even do that. Let's take a quick break with TFR. Hold on a second. I will silence that music and we'll continue. Long story short, it was pre-planned. It was also known by the organizers exactly what was going to happen. And it was used by the mainstream media to paint all of us, the whole 500,000 people that were there, singing songs and celebrating America. And I might add, maybe heartbroken about the loss of the Republic. But nevertheless, none of us were violent. But it would be used by them to paint all of us that way. And what happened in the weeks following, up until and including today, is a thing we call the purge. Now, purge for them, because they control all the technology out there, all of the platforms out there. You've already heard about it in the news, right? I mean, Parler was deplatformed. They can't find a server to even host their service on. Places like Proton Mail and Telegram and WhatsApp and emails and all this stuff is all being targeted by the left for termination. And it is much worse than what you think. My Twitter account was terminated. My LinkedIn account was terminated. And now I'm kind of walking on eggshells with the rest of my social media. But bottom line is they're trying to remove people that may harbor a thought that the election was not as fair as it probably should have been. Asked during a briefing about the motivation of classifying Trump followers as terrorists, yes, Michael Chertoff, who's the former Secretary of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush, said this. Kind of important that we understand what's going on here, because we read about this in books and in history. We said to ourselves, gee, that's terrible. How could those people have allowed that to happen? Well, he said, in my view, it is domestic terrorism mounted by right-wing extremists and neo-Nazi groups. We have to be candid and face what the real risk is. In that one sentence, Chertoff, obviously a respected member of the establishment, has said a right-wing extremist is a Trump supporter, and a right-wing extremist is a Nazi, and a Nazi is a domestic terrorist. And this is the real risk. Now, this kind of candor has long been criticized. We usually say something like, oh, how ridiculous. Who could ever believe such a thing? When a warning in a 2009 Department of Homeland Security report, early in the Obama administration, the military veterans were returning from combat. And they had been taught to kill. And they'd seen the worst of the worst. They saw people who enjoyed killing innocent people. They saw people who would strap a bomb to themselves, drive or walk into a restaurant, and just blow everybody up. Not more than once, obviously, but they saw the worst of the worst. Their people were killed, injured by this kind of terror. And so the word terror and the fact that the state supported this kind of terror. Go ahead and bring TFR back in. The fact that the state supported this kind of terror is what they were exposed to. These soldiers saw it. They saw what happened when not only that state, but our state was involved in building ISIS. They saw our money. They saw our vehicles. They saw our technology being used to build and to facilitate the building and progress of ISIS. ISIS had no satellites. ISIS didn't even have an airplane, didn't have a helicopter, and yet they were successful. We would send air raids out against them with jets and helicopters fully loaded with weapons, and by the time they got there, ISIS was gone. It was a vacant lot. There was nobody there, just some old trucks laying around. So they returned home, didn't fire a weapon, didn't drop a bomb. Nothing to see here, let's go home. You know why? Because somebody in the Obama White House was calling them. They were calling them in advance. They were saying, well, they're going to be there in 45 minutes. Y'all maybe want to get out of the way. And that's what they were doing. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No. This is true. This is true. And so what happened was, as these soldiers, these veterans were returning home, they had all this experience. They had all this intel. They saw it with their own eyes. And they realized, the administration realized, that these individuals could be vulnerable to recruitment by what they called terrorist groups or extremists. And it prompted a backlash from conservatives. The Homeland Security leader at the time was Mama Janet Napolitano. Called her mom because she watched everything. She was forced to apologize. The report was retracted, and it was an edited version that was eventually reissued. But we all heard it. We were there. It was an early lesson in how fraught dealing with these issues can be. But it turns out, the report itself and the substance of the report was quite prescient. Ms. Napolitano was being as real as she could be. What we saw 2 weeks ago is what I think we were seeing in 2009. But it had only grown, and it seems to have exploded in the last 4 years. In other words, she was blaming the Antifa violence that occurred on January 6th on Trump followers. That's what she was doing. This is institutional, and this is how the purge gained strength. The Department's Office of Intelligence and Analysis is responsible for gathering information on emerging threats and sharing it with state authorities to bolster coordination among federal and local law enforcement. The truth is, it has come out of DHS, Mr. Chertoff said, not playing patty cake with political agendas. Well, we're not playing patty cake either. And we're not terrorists, and we're certainly not Nazis. We're patriots, and we love this country, and we do not like what you and your associates have been doing to us and to the world and to this country. And so we used to call ourselves the resistance, maybe. We used to call ourselves passive. But we're not anymore. Not anymore. We're not passive, we're active. We're not resisting, we're persisting. We're organized, we're smart, and we outnumber you 1,000 to 1. So you can purge a few of us here and there. Go ahead. That's okay. We'll find another way. And then another, and then another. And then we're going to bring all those ways back around to your tail. And then we're going to sit back and watch as you chase and chase and chase until you drill a hole into the ground yourself. That's us. The organizers, Antifa and BLM, that terrorized Congress, dressed as MAGA supporters, were posting actually on DLive, and they were posting on Telegram and WhatsApp and other venues, and it was known. We saw and they saw what was going on. That's why this impeachment is a total sham. Trump didn't incite anyone. In fact, he inspired us. He inspired us. He solidified us. Yes, solidarity. Solidarity. He solidified us. He helped us see who we were, but he also showed us who they are. Hence the Great Awakening. Now, of course, what has happened is the left has tried to purge those people that are sharing these awake ideas, showing people where they can go for safe haven. Now, that being said, I want to share with you some outcroppings of what has occurred. Because as I said, we'll find another way. Find a way to strike back. And we'll find a way to hurt them where it hurts the worst, without violence. What I'm about to share with you is something you may have heard in the news, but you have not heard it from someone on the inside. You haven't heard it from someone who could put the pieces together so you can understand. I call it naked short wars. In fact, this is going to be the subject of my newsletter that comes out later on tonight. It comes out twice a week on Wednesdays and Sundays. If you haven't signed up for it, I don't know what to do with you. I make it so easy. So easy. All you have to do is go to either one of my websites, which are linked right down here below in the description, either brooksagnew.com or americafreeradio.com, and right there on the front is a button. It says, get my newsletter. And guess what? It's free. It don't cost nothing. And I send it out twice a week. You can open it and you can throw it away. Fine. No problem. I want you to have it because this is important information. It will save your bacon and it may inspire you and give you a piece that you need. What I really would like you to do is to forward that email to one of your friends. Get them to see what you're listening to and what you're seeing. Now, naked short wars. William, don't get excited here. What is it, Mona? Max Egan says Trump got all the patriots to come out and expose themselves for the deep state, etc. Or, for example, Trump is part of the deep state. Not saying I believe it, just saying what Max Egan said. He's not alone. Sergeant Friday says the same thing, and there are others that have called in to Breitbart Radio that say the same thing. I don't think that Trump is part of the deep state. Absolutely do not. I think that he became a billionaire on his own. He built things that other people could not build, did things that other people could not do. Sure, they came to him and asked him for money, and he was happy to give it because that's the way it works. That's how you get things done. You be everybody's friend, try to be no one's enemy. But over time, over 25, 27 years, Donald Trump was saying exactly the same thing that he said when he was president. And look what he did. He changed the world. He changed the world by rolling back regulations, not putting them in place. He changed the world by empowering each one of us to be the best that we can be, and enable us to do the things that we do best, not clamping us down. He solidified us by bringing us out of fear, which is where we all were. We weren't in the shadows. We were in the wilderness. We were not in the shadows. We were in the wilderness, Mona. And he brought us out of the wilderness and he focused us. And the fact that it turned out the way that it did doesn't surprise anybody. And I agree. Cannon Sanders, Max Egan can keep his opinion down under. Everybody has their opinion, but that's why you listen to this program, to put these things in perspective. On the surface, it looks like Donald Trump moved a lot of enemies out of the way. All the pedophiles, or most of the pedophiles. The disappointing thing for me is there was a list. I'm not talking about thousands of people or even hundreds of people. There was a list of about 34 individuals. 34 individuals that walked free. They walked free. They were murderers. They were money launderers. They were liars. They were not only pedophiles, they were predators. They preyed upon other people. They cheated. They lied, not only to the American people, but to governments, to states. They had people killed, and they killed people for money and for power. Had President Trump taken out these 34 people, and by taken out, I mean had them arrested and convicted and sentenced, the entire world would have worshipped him. More importantly, the entire world would still have faith in the rule of law. But they don't. I don't. Do you? Do you have faith in the rule of law? No. And so, do we need that in order to survive as a republic? Maybe. Let me tell you about the Naked Short Wars. If you've listened to my program over the years, I have addressed the activities of the scourge of Wall Street, the naked short traders. These are large cap players who sell stock for reduced prices in companies they do not own. Buying companies short has been around since stock was invented, but naked selling is a crime. More than 10,000 small businesses that raise money on the public markets have been targeted and destroyed by naked short traders. This is how it works. A small company relies on the price of its shares to borrow against or to sell into the market from time to time for capital or cash flow or for general fund support. When you run short, not able to make payroll, sell some shares into the market, get some money in that you don't have to repay, and boom, it's a shot in the arm. Anything like a fire or an accident or a resignation or a divorce or some lawsuit can impact the price of those shares. That is the way it's supposed to happen. CEO comes out and says, "We don't want any Trump supporters coming in our store." That's going to affect the price of your shares, Bubba, because 74 million people are no longer going to shop there. You don't believe me? Ask Bed Bath and whatever. But when a hedge fund or a large bank decides that the stock is overpriced for whatever reason, they can sell shares that don't exist. We call them phantom shares. Normally what they would do is they would borrow the shares off of a shareholder, sell them short, take the money in, then when the price goes down, buy those shares at the discounted price from and return them to the person that has them. So if, let's say, the stock is worth $10 and they say, well, the CEO is going to get divorced, it's going to be nasty because he cheated on his wife, and once this is made public, the stock is going to go down to $5. So what he does is he borrows several of the $10 shares from the shareholder. The price goes down to $5. He buys the shares. The price goes back up a little bit, and he makes money, or he makes money on what's called the short, on the option, and that's how he makes money. The naked short trader never borrows the shares. He just sells shares into the market that don't exist. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Now, if it goes down, they don't have to deliver the shares. They make a profit. But if the stock goes up, short trader gets caught between a rock and a hard place. They have to buy the shares off the market. And that causes the share price to go up, which can exacerbate their losses exponentially. It gets even worse. If people get wind of the run, they can compete against the hedge fund shares. Thousands of people were made millionaires this last week when this happened to GameStop shares being viciously naked shorted on the market. Oh, the hedge fund tried to stop themselves from bleeding out by pressuring the retailers like Robinhood to stop letting consumers buy the stock. Robinhood responded to the pressure, and they stopped their app holders from buying the shares. They could sell, but they could not buy. Well, consumers responded by dumping their accounts and the app within seconds. And that burned up Robinhood capital and sent them scrambling for $1 billion to cover their losses, which I don't think they found. Consumers see a chance to stab the much-hated hedge fund owners in the heart, and they are taking it. They organized on Reddit and Discord for solidarity to get the GameStop share price as high as possible, forced by the hedge fund's legal requirement to deliver the shares that don't otherwise exist. Now, I predicted that the hedge fund would then go to Congress for help. And that's exactly what they did. After all, they are the ones who finance campaigns. Lots of them. Liz Warren and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all of these. No sooner did the sun rise the following morning, but that is exactly what happened. All is not peace and tranquility in Washington due to the larceny of the White House by the Democrats. Both Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ted Cruz are among lawmakers seemingly calling for congressional action after Robinhood restricted trading for GameStop following a surge spurred by a populist investing movement. Remember that. Populist investing movement. That doesn't sound Nazi to me. It sounds patriot to me. The point is that Cruz and Ocasio tried to go to bat for the investors who were trying to buy the stock, and Robinhood wouldn't let them. Of course, Ocasio-Cortez lunged out at Cruz and told him to die, or to sit this one out because he attempted to murder her 3 weeks before. Stupid stuff said by a stupid young person. But they're going to try to find common ground tomorrow. And I think what's going to happen is Congress is going to step in. And because the public is doing such clamoring, they're going to try to rub some salve on the Robinhood wound. Because if Robinhood goes belly up tomorrow or the next day, yes, Karen, that's exactly right. The CEO of Robinhood is the son of Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah. See, it's all one big incestuous buddy family there. That's where these people come from. So, and Robinhood is just a, without fee, what we call a B book. It could be called bad book, but it's not. It's these are people that would most likely make bad decisions and most likely lose their money in the market. So Robinhood was formed to facilitate these fools who think that they can invest in stocks and make money. Now, you can't day trade on Robinhood because it's too slow of a trading system. But you can buy stock and you can own it. I own Kodak stock and some other shares in various companies. I think the company that owns Candy Crush and stuff like that, just because I think I'm all that smart, right? Yeah. My portfolio's up like 35% or something. I'm decent. I'm just decent. There are people that do way better than I do. But, Robinhood is just there basically for the losers. It's the losers fund, not the winners fund. Just saying. I'm just saying. So Robinhood makes money by handling the trades. And they're about to go under because they don't have enough capital to cover all the trades that they've made because of this GameStop issue that occurred. Robinhood can't cover the call. They can't cover the call. They got to buy the shares to deliver to the people who bought them so they can sell them for a profit and reap their benefit, right? 10,000 millionaires were made, or maybe 6,000 millionaires were made off of these investments, mostly Robinhood. And Robinhood's going to probably disappear. It's going to fold. What does that mean for the shares that I own? I don't know. I may have just lost all my money. We'll find out. But if everybody goes and tries to sell all their holdings in Robinhood tomorrow, Robinhood's definitely going to fold. You could just take that to the bank. The point is that we organized. Somehow on Reddit, we saw what was happening with GameStop. Now, what was happening with GameStop is also happening with 30 companies any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I'm serious. What happens is GameStop was a retailer, a bricks and mortar retailer that you normally saw in the mall or some strip mall. And they used to sell games on disc. Well, that is so 1990s. I mean, nobody buys DVDs. I don't even have a DVD player on this computer. Nobody buys games that way anymore. They download them from the cloud. So the discs are obsolete. All that expensive packaging and the page on the outside with the embossing and all of the UV highlights. It used to be the most beautiful game packages. All that's obsolete now. Nobody does that anymore. But GameStop kind of morphed a little bit, and they sold controllers, and they sold, stereo seats, and they sold remote control bikes and cars, and all. They morphed. They changed a little bit, but their stock was worth what it was worth. Maybe it was a little high. So the short traders said, GameStop is overpriced. Let's short them and put them out of business. GameStop's been around for a while. They got pretty good size holdings. But COVID has done their part in putting them out of business as well because their stores are all closed. They have an online presence, yes, but so does everybody else. So does Amazon, so does eBay. You can find all kinds of competitors with GameStop. So they said, let's short the company. Well, the issue was there weren't that many shares on the market. A few, but not that many. So they naked shorted it. They created the shares out of nothing, and they shorted the company about 20 million shares more than what there was actually on the market. Oh, it was fun. Because the bottom line is if they could short that stock down to zero, it delists. Once it delists, they get to put all the money in their pocket and they never have to deliver any shares. Well, on Reddit, they marshaled an army of investors and they went after the GameStop stock. They said, let's not leave this stock on the market. Let's buy it up. So they did. It went to 20. It went to 40. It went to 80. It went to 200. It went to 300. It was up like they're trying to push it to $1,000 a share. And they're holding the line. Now, the losers, the people on Robinhood that own this stock, they could lose all their money. If you bought GameStop stock at $300 and you're holding the line, man, you could so pay off your house with that money. If the hedge fund is successful in going to Congress and getting Congress to go to the SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they say, we want to roll back the clock. We want to roll back the clock to when GameStop was $3 a share. And what that will effectively do is it will take all these middle-class wannabes and it will bankrupt them. They'll lose their homes, they'll lose their 401ks, they'll lose their cars, their credit will be ruined for 7 years. And you know what? We don't care. You know why? Because they're all Trump followers. We're going to screw all these people. We're going to tank them. You know why? Because they systemically traded. They used Reddit to communicate again with one another, and they conspired to attack a bank. They conspired. They colluded to destroy a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. By the way, they lost $46 billion with a B. $46 billion they lost because of this one stock. And it doesn't stop there. There's a list. I'm not going to give you the list. I'm not going to put it in my newsletter. There's a list of 30 companies that this hedge fund and other hedge funds are naked shorting. And you know what's going to happen. 74 million investors are going to go after these stocks. And they're going to crucify these hedge funds. They're going to kill them all. They're all going to lose their money. They're all going to go broke. All those buildings are going to go bankrupt. All those traders and all those people in the exchange, they're all going to lose their jobs. And you know who's going to cry? Nobody. Not nobody. Well, Congress is going to cry because then the people who are funding their never-ending stream of cash and junkets and jets and everything, that's going away. They'll cry. But do you care about that? No, not a bit. This is what the purge has done. They created this army. They created this force. Do you know who made people vote for President Trump in 2016? It wasn't Trump. It was Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton made people vote for Donald Trump. Send TFR on their break for 3 minutes. Yes, that's right. Hillary Clinton is the one that made people vote for Donald Trump. She's the one that created the MAGA movement. Yes. And she's also the one that has created this monster. And this monster right now is hungry. You know why? Because we have dragon blood on our sword. We have slayed the dragon. We have slain the dragon. And we found out that the dragon is not immortal. The dragon bleeds and the dragon dies. And we can win. Who cares if the hedge funds go broke? Do you? Oh, I got another one I'm going to run by in a second. I actually want the Truth Frequency listeners to hear this, so I'm going to just hang out with you guys. You know, Lady Peregrine, are you like got it going on? Are you reading? Can't see my screen. She says silver is in trouble. No. I mean, yes, silver's moving, but it's not in trouble. The silver short holders are in trouble. That's for sure. And I'm going to just talk about that in just a second. Oh, come on. More free thinkers. He said, my feed sucks. Loved you all. Will watch the replay. Well, that happens. Cindy Lou, good to see you out there. What's carnival? Carnival. I hear carnival will come back. I don't know what carnival is. I mean, it could be a lot of things. I just don't know what you're talking about there. Not enough. Need more information. Yes, Mark Hovsepian, that's so funny. He says, and he quotes, turn those machines back on. You remember the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, where they went in and used frozen orange juice futures in Florida. And Mr. Beek's report that they faked in order to manipulate the stock on the floor. Turn those machines back on, yes, after the old guys lost all their money. Cannon Sanders says the Robinson app crash was the pulling back of the curtain by Toto. Yes, it was. And had they not been pulling the shenanigans that they were, I mean, it was a market that was untapped, really, wasn't it? The losers board, it really was. We don't all consider ourselves losers. There are certainly a lot of losers in Robinhood. But Robinhood allows us to gamble money that we would ordinarily be throwing up a horse's butt anyway. And we watch the news and we go, oh, I'm going to go buy some stock in that. And then we watch as the stock goes up 40, 50, 60%. And we go, wow, I'm really good at this. Maybe. And then we create our own monster. All right, we'll bring TFR back in. A little bit of music.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through. In this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth I wanted. explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever, or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
Yes, we will wait. I love that song. By the way, I am working up. I set a goal in my journal back here to work up 3 songs on the guitar this year. I've been working on my first song for a while. It's a cover, but it's a song by Lauren Daigle, and it's called "You Say." I know a lot of you like that song, so when I get it done, we'll see what we can. I also want to let you know that next Saturday is the day for the masterclass, the manifestation masterclass. If you haven't taken this class, now's the time to do it. Okay, 2021's just starting. Going to be a lot of opportunity, green and otherwise, and I want you to be in a position to take advantage of that. And what I mean by that is, I want you to be able to tap into the greatness of yourself and get the handicaps that you carry around out of the way so that you can make these things happen. I touch on this a little bit on this program, but this is a really concentrated class. It's 5.5 hours. We don't do it all in one day. We do 2.5 hours one day and about 2 the next day, and then we communicate further beyond that. But it's $47. So the price of a movie, you get this class live, and then I also give you the recording, and you also get a free copy of the book signed. So there's a lot of value that I give away in this. And what I'm trying to do is get what I know, what I've done, into your brain and into your life so you can use it as tools. Now, normally this is a live presentation. I was all set to give this a dozen times in 2020. It was going to be a roaring year. And the Global Syndicate had other things in mind, so they smashed the world economy. And only one of those, 2 actually, of those events happened. The rest were lost. So I adapted. I turned it into a webinar, and now what normally would be my live presentation that I would give on stage in front of 1,000 people, I give to you for $47. You don't have to spend $800 or $900 or $1,200 to come to a conference, renting a hotel, buying a plane ticket, renting a car, buying your meals. You can sit there in your pajamas, and I can give you this lesson in your own home for a fraction the cost, and you get way more out of it because you're not distracted, you're not hungover, you're not flitting around wondering what is the next presentation you're going to see. These are tools that can really help you. And next Saturday at noon Eastern time, I make it as easy as I can. I have had people from South Africa, from Europe, from Australia, from West Coast, East Coast, you name it, live in this class. This seems to be the best hour of the day to do this for everybody. And it is really great. I enjoy doing it. You enjoy receiving it. So go to my website, brooksagnew.com, click on the webinars link, and sign up. Easy to do. It's problem-free, simple and easy to do. Join other people in the class. You'll all be able to communicate with one another at the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the class, and it'll be good. Build a family this way. All right? Now, let's go back to this. I want to talk about silver. It was brought up earlier that it's in trouble. Not really. It was something we've requested you to follow my example. If you have long-term cash laying about, some people do, cigar box or a safe, or you have $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in your checking account that just sits there each month, and you're making all your bills, but you don't want to spend your money, but you don't want to put it in savings. They're not going to give you anything for interest anyway. I recommended that you take a quarter of that long-term cash that you have, provided that you're debt-free, and that you park it in silver. What is it, Mark? Is it true you can get tossed out of a guitar store for playing Stairway to Heaven on a demo guitar? No, it's not true. They like to have people in Guitar Center playing guitar because it inspires people to buy guitars. They like to have people come in and play the keyboards. That's why they're laying out there. Where'd you ever hear that? AB says Robinhood was created by Vladimir Tenev and Baiju Bhatt, Stanford people. How does Maxwell figure in? Maxwell's the CEO of the company. Okay? These syndicate owners, these manipulators, they place their kids into these large companies, very young, I might add. Her son's young. He's in his 20s, it looks like. What the world is he doing running Robinhood? I have no idea. He certainly doesn't have the financial experience to do it. I doubt he came from Stanford or Harvard. The point is, this is a family thing. Why do you think Hunter Biden was made put on the board of Burisma? You think he had any gas experience? Hell no. He didn't know anything about it. He could scarcely stay sober long enough to even make the meetings. In fact, I don't think he made most of them. It's a family thing. They put them on there so they can launder money. This is how it's done. This is how it's done. That's what happened, AB. So let's go back to the story. Silver, as you know, has been severely shorted. And I'll cover that in just a second. But for years, that's why I say you just park your money there. It's there as a hedge, your hedge against inflation, because silver is terribly shorted. In other words, it's on the market. It was on the market for about $22, $24 an ounce a few weeks back. This week, it jumped up early in the week to about 27, which is about a 10% jump. That was welcome. It was welcome. Today, if you go to eBay and try to buy it, it's $44.50 an ounce. That's a pretty good jump. That means that the money that I had put into silver, and I have a lot, but it's not as lot as my friends have, but I have a lot. That money just became worth more money. Let's say I bought at $18 an ounce. Now it's worth $45. See? So it's almost 300%. Whatever money I had tied up in there is now worth 3 times what it was worth. And it's not going to stop. Silver mining is expensive, and silver is used in all kinds of industries. It's used in solar panels. It's used in cell phones. It's used in all kinds of satellite electronics, and Lord knows there's been a lot of satellite electronics going up. And it's also used in storage, bars and ingots, and you can buy it in 1 ounce, 5 ounce, 10 ounce bars. They're beautiful. They're sealed in plastic, and they make great storage items. Because if the dollar ever gets hugely inflated, the silver will protect you. But this is why I recommended silver over gold. Silver is being shorted. It means that there are companies that sell short contracts on silver. Now, Morgan Stanley has the largest silver vault in the world. They just do. They have for a long, long time. So, by rights, Morgan Stanley is long on silver, just like I am. I'm long on silver. It means I have cash invested in metal, and the metal's in my vault. But Morgan Stanley is also selling short contracts, like 50,000 of them. 50,000, maybe 100,000 short contracts on silver, which means that price better stay where it's at or go down. If it stays where it's at, Morgan Stanley makes money. If it goes down, Morgan Stanley makes money. Yeah. So what they don't want to have happen is the price to go up. Why? Because they've sold that silver in their vault 100 times over. Yeah, the bars in their vault, there must be 100 owners for each bar in there. But they own shorts. They own paper. If they ever say, all right, it went up Deliver me my silver. I want my silver bar. Give me my bar. Mail it to me. Can't do it. Can't do it because there's 100 owners speaking for that bar. And silver miners are also getting the love. Australian silver stocks, including Argent Minerals and Boab Metals, rose more than 20% this week. So as silver it's approaching $50, okay, now. As silver approaches $50, keep an eye on major price slams, emerging either out of central banks who deliberately need to keep precious metals lower, as I said, they are short on it, or the BIS. This is the Bank of International Settlements. These are the people that handle all the wire transfers back and forth. Okay? In the 24 hours preceding Friday's market close, a couple of days ago, SD Bullion sold nearly 10,000 the number of silver ounces that they normally would sell in an entire weekend leading to Sunday market open. In a normal market, they normally find at least one supplier willing to sell some ounces. Over the weekend, they exceed their long position, the number of ounces they actually predict they're going to sell over the weekend. They can find more. But everybody they talk to is afraid of a gap up at Sunday night market open. It's today. I went to the market today and looked at silver myself. I didn't really kick myself because I have enough cash and I have enough silver that if I converted more cash into silver, it's really no big deal. But I was actually going to buy some more silver 2 weeks ago. I had my eye on it. I had it watched. And I was going to buy a few more 10-ounce bars. And I didn't do it. Why? Because the price of silver has been stable for years. For years and years, it's been the same. My friends and I have been talking since 2012 about how high silver was going to go. And we bought pounds of the stuff. We've been sitting on it. Now, I took some silver and I bought this computer. I think it was early in 2019. I bought this computer. I just took some silver bars to my computer builder. And I said, here, build me this tower. So he built me the tower and he took the silver. And I think he sold it when the market went up a little bit. But he made some good money off that silver. Yes, you can buy stuff with silver direct if you can find somewhere to take it. If you need to convert it into cash, you can do it in 20 minutes. All you have to do is walk down to the pawn shop and sell the bars at spot, minus 2%. But you can put cash in your pocket in a second if you need cash. The point is, silver went up. And now I went to eBay today and I thought, maybe I will buy a few more 10-ounce bars. Guess what? Not out there. Oh, it's there, but it's not in stock. If I bought it today at $45 and tomorrow it goes to $150, you know what's going to happen with my order? It's not going to be filled. They're not going to fill it at $45 when they could fill it the next day for $150, right? That's the trouble silver is in. That's the trouble. There's nothing. There's no single offer, and this is very scary. Whatever they sell, people are holding it. They're not reselling it. They're not selling it on eBay. APMEX is totally not selling. They're holding on to it. There's no inflow of metal bars into the system at all. Now, it would appear the run on silver has already begun. As I said, it would happen right here on this program just a few days ago. With the market closed, traders have rushed to secure some exposure to silver ahead of what markets are saying could be the world's biggest short squeeze. And that has left bullion dealers premium for physical silver has soared this weekend. And I don't even know if you can get your hands on it. If you get on coins, They're not pure silver, but there is an ounce of silver in them. So you can use coins. I prefer bars because they're bigger, they're heavier, and you could buy 100 ounces and store it easily. So there's a tweet out here. I bought 100 ounces yesterday in bullion, trying to find more today, but everyone is sold out locally. And online, all the big suppliers are sold out after the weekend. It's true. We can only imagine where silver is going to go this week. My guess, I don't know. I think it's going to go up, but I don't think you're going to be able to buy any. So if you didn't follow what I told you to do over the last year and a half, you're out in the cold. Yes, I see the link, Falcon 80. Falcon 80 says American Precious Metals has silver rounds. He has a link in here. That's APMEX. I'm familiar with it. I went to it. It does say, 120 sold or 180 sold, but that doesn't mean they have any in stock. I promise you, if you click on that link and you say, yeah, I'd like to buy 100 ounces, you're not going to get your order filled. I could just tell you. Now, both the industrial case and the monetary case, debt printing has never been more favorable for the number one inflation hedge, and that is silver. As I have been telling you, it's affordable, it was affordable, and it was plentiful. People were willing to sell it. Inflation-adjusted silver should be at $1,000 instead of $45. Okay? So why not squeeze silver money to real physical price? Well, think about the gains. If you don't care about the gains, think about the banks like JP Morgan. You'd be destroying them. You'd be destroying them. They own the silver, but they also own the shorts. And they would have to make the shorts good on their own silver. If they had 50,000 shorts on silver, let's say for 1,000 ounces each, that's 50 million ounces. They don't have 50 million ounces. They don't have 50 million troy ounces of silver. They can't deliver it. That means they have to go to the market and buy it. And we just had a lesson on that with GameStop, did we not? A $3.50 stock is selling for $400 tomorrow. It may go to $500 by next Friday. It's not worth it. It isn't worth it. The only thing that's making it valuable is the short traders are trying to buy it because they have to. That's why they're going to go to Congress and they're going to say, we can't buy it and we don't want to lose our seat on the exchange. So you need to write a law and reset this clock or release us from our obligation to buy this silver. And you know what would happen if that happened. You'd have 10,000 middle-class people driven into bankruptcy. Just like that. Just like that. You think putting 20,000 or 40,000 XL pipeline people out of work overnight, all those families, all those homes, all those cars and student loans and furniture payments, all that stuff is sent into bankruptcy, plus the pipe, plus the equipment, plus the trucks, plus the cranes, plus the drills, all that stuff that's mortgaged. It all gets dumped on you. Gets dumped on you. The people that sold the trucks and the people that financed the pipe and the people that financed the homes and everything those people have, they all went bankrupt, all of them. And who made money? The government. The government makes money. And so if these hedge funds go to Congress and say, we want out of our obligation, you made this happen, you created this monster, we're taking the bath, and if we go down, you go down. If we go down, you go down. You no longer get any money. You're not going to get elected this next season because we're not going to be able to give you any money. So you better fix it, and you better fix it now. And what Congress is going to do is they're going to go to the Securities and Exchange Commission and they're going to say, release the hedge fund from their obligation to deliver these shares. Just pretend it never happened. Well, when that happens, GameStop's stock goes back to $3.50, and all those people that paid $300 for it Friday, they go bankrupt. People be jumping out of windows. People be putting a gun in their mouth. That's what'll happen. And the same thing will happen with silver. When Morgan Stanley is forced to sell or to provide all the silver that they have in their vaults to the people that own those short contracts, and they don't have it, one of the top 20 banks in the world, JP Morgan Stanley, disappears, along with all the other banks that are what we call counterparties to that risk. Because they sell out the counterparties. They don't take all the risk themselves. They sell it to Deutsche Bank and to Credit Suisse and to Wells Fargo. They buy into those shorts as well. They cover them. And what happens when they can't deliver the silver? They got to go buy it. And you know who they're going to buy it from? Me. They're going to buy it from me. I'm John Q. Public. I have the silver. Now, it could happen the same thing that happened in World War II. You remember that? All of a sudden, everybody was holding on to gold. Yeah. Or maybe it was World War I. Everyone was holding on to gold. And what happened? They made ownership of gold by private citizens illegal. They made it against the law. If you owned it and you tried to sell it, you could go to jail. Yeah. I mean, you could own a gold ring. But you couldn't own gold bars. If you owned gold bars, you were going to jail. That belonged to the government, and they were taking it. They may do that. They may say silver is a threat to national security, and if you've been hoarding silver, you're part of the problem. I'm just throwing these possibilities out there. I'm looking at the charts, and it doesn't look good. I mean, what we call a short squeeze is just exactly what I'm saying. Morgan Stanley has a vault full of silver. They own it. They have the bars. Trouble is, they've sold those bars thousands and thousands of times to people as short contracts. And then they've manipulated the market to make sure it stays low or goes down. And every time it goes down, they make money and they don't have to deliver the silver. Every time the price stays the same, the people that bought the short contracts go broke. They just do. They say, well, I think silver is going to go down to $17 in the next year. Well, if it doesn't, in the next year, you lost your $17. Too bad. So sad. That's why Morgan Stanley sells the shorts. It's free freaking money. And what do they do with the money? They buy politicians with the money. The silver market is much larger than gold in terms of notional value. But there's very little physical silver actually readily available because it's used in industry for everything. The paper silver trading hands in the futures market is hundreds of times larger than what is actually physically available. When we talk about buying silver, I don't mean buying a silver bullion, buying a silver paper. I mean you buy the silver bar and you put it in your house. That's what I'm talking about. Thus, when they are forced to actually deliver physical silver, it is going to create a massive short squeeze where an absurd amount of silver will be sought after to fulfill their contractually obligated delivery with very little available to actually buy. They are naked shorting silver and will have to cover all of it at once and the float as a percentage of the total silver stock globally. It's truly very small, microscopic in fact. So if you own silver, I would say you should own at least 4 pounds. If you own 20 pounds, you're going to be in fantastic shape. You'll probably be able to pay your house off. But you should own 3 or 4 pounds of it anyway. That's about 50 ounces. If you own more than that, it's a pretty good amount. You could probably buy a new car or something. if you want to sell it, because these people contractually have to buy it. Put it this way, if GameStop stock can go from $6 to $600, that's 100 times its value. If I got 100 times the value of what I have in my silver, it's going to be a day for me. Normally, the gold to silver ratio is 73 to 1. It means that the price of gold per ounce is 73 times the price of silver. Naturally occurring silver is only about 18 3/4 times as common as gold. So this ratio of 73 to 1 is actually quite high. It should be around 5 to 1. Studio go for 3 minutes, and then we'll bring them back. Until the early 20th century, silver prices were pegged at 15 to 1. That's still a little high, but it's reasonable to gold, meaning the world is only producing 8 ounces of silver for each newly produced ounce of gold. Global industry has been able to get away with producing so little new silver for so long because governments have dumped silver on the market for 80 years because it's been shorted. But now their silver vaults are empty. They're done. At the end of World War II, government vaults globally contained 10 billion ounces of silver. But as we move to flat currency and away from precious metal-backed currencies, the amount held by governments has decreased to only about 250 million ounces, 250 million ounces, as they dump their supply into the market. But this dumping is done now. They don't have any more to dump. So they've effectively crashed the silver availability. Once this 240 billion or 240 million ounces or so, it represents only about 8% of the total supply of only 3 billion ounces stored as investment globally. And this means that 92% of that gold is held privately by institutions and by millions of us, you and me, gold and silver bugs who have been sitting on meager gains for a long, long time, waiting for our day. Just like the GameStop stock owners are now wonderfully excited that sometime this next week they're going to sell their shares. And they're going to pay their house off and pay their car off and pay their student loan off, all because of a stupid little stock. This means that these boomers, they're not going to sell. Not their gold or the silver, no matter what. Because they see their silver cash as part of their doomsday prepper supplies. I do. I know once I sell it, and I turn it into cash, I'm never getting it back. My cash is just as vulnerable as paper. And the government could at any moment say, cash is the currency of crime. Everything's going electronic. If you're sitting on cash, it's just too bad for you. Our silver's locked away in bunkers we built 500 miles from our house. Also, with silver at $23 an ounce, $27, $35, $45 an ounce, it means all of the world's investment-grade silver only has a total market cap of about $100 billion. Peanuts. Peanuts. This is the whole world, everybody's holdings. For comparison, the investment-grade gold in the world is worth roughly $6 trillion. And this is because most of the silver produced each year actually gets used. If it's mined, it's put into industry. It's used. It's not turned into bars. If the squeeze happens, and it's going to happen this week, it's going to be like 40 years worth of their gains in 4 months. The reason that only 8 ounces of silver are produced for every 1 ounce of gold in today's world is because there aren't really any good naturally occurring silver mines left in the world. Silver is more common than gold in the Earth's crust, but it is spread very thin. Thus, nearly every ounce of silver produced produced is actually a byproduct of mining for other metals like gold or copper. And this means that even as the silver price skyrockets, it's not going to be easy to increase the amount of silver being produced. Even if new mines are started, which is not going to be very likely, since the federal government owns 28% of the land in this country that is prime for silver mining. It's going to take a decade to develop, if you can get it developed, because I don't think the greenies are going to let you strip mine these acres of land, 640 million acres of land. And finally, most of this newly created silver supply each year, let's bring TFR back in, most of this newly created silver supply each year is used for productive purposes rather than kept for investment. It's used in solar panels and jewelry and cell phones, and it used to be used in film, polyester-based film, like for cameras. Don't use it for that anymore. It used to be used in audio tape, but we don't use audio tape anymore. We use digital means of recording. But all of those computers, all of these plasma screens that we're using in this studio here, it all uses silver. It all uses silver. The demand is not going to go away if the silver price rises. So the short sellers will be trying to get their hands on a very small slice of newly minted silver. The solar market is also going to grow quickly, and political pressure to increase the solar and electric vehicles, and I forgot about batteries, car batteries too, are also going to require silver. More industrial demand. The other part of the story is the faster moving piece, that is the inflation and currency debasement fear portion. We know that $1 is worth way less now than it was 40 years ago. It's worth way less now than it was 20 years ago. The government and the Fed, they are printing money like as fast as the press will go. So investors looking for real assets like precious metals to hide out in are driving demand for silver as well. That's me. I'm one of those investors. I think cash is okay to have because it's quick and you can disappear on a bus ticket, but silver protects the cash from losing its value because the silver never changes in value. It's only the money changes in value. And all this money combined with the reopening of the economy could cause some solid inflation to occur because they're printing it, and that's how inflation begins. The other way it can begin sharply is by demanding a $15 minimum wage. That's instant inflation, like instant, in 5 seconds. You've inflated the system. You've forced more money into the system without improving quality. That's inflation. And once inflation starts, it kind of feeds on itself. Let's just do a little scenario here. Silver goes up to $100 an ounce. Wonderful. You think I'm going to be able to buy this monitor right here for $199? Nope. It's now going to be $275. Yeah. And those solar panels that we were spending about 75 cents a watt for, 50 cents, 55 cents a watt, thinking to be able to buy them for that? Nope. It's going to go back up to $1.50 a watt. And those car batteries, those electric vehicle batteries that we were spending $10,000, $10,500 for one of our trucks, think we're going to be a buy for that? Nope. That price is going to go up to $15,000. So who pays for all this? You do. You pay for it. That's where the price is going to be paid. You think the bank is actually going to lose money? Yeah. You know who's going to make it up? You will. You will. It's true. So that's enough about silver. I want to talk about fusion rockets. You knew I was going to get around to that sooner or later, right? Because the important thing here is that we're going to space. And we're going to space in a serious way. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this new administration is going to trash NASA. Oh yeah, they're going. They're going to go after all the money that was given to NASA. They're going to go away. They're going to go after all the space research. All that is crap. None of that has to do with their green agenda. It doesn't line their pockets. Their people hate it. So all that's going away. Well, maybe not all of it, because you've given private industry taste now. They've put up a lot of satellites. System's not complete yet. They need a few more satellites to round it out, but you've given them a taste of the moon. You've given them a taste of cis Mars and asteroid belt space. And you can't take that away, because guess what we discovered out there? Yeah, we discovered entire asteroids that are solid nickel or platinum, or we've discovered helium-3, which is the fuel of the future. There's enough on the moon to power Earth for 10,000 years at our current usage of energy. Think of it. 10,000 years of fuel with zero pollution, nothing. No radiation, nothing. No CO2, totally free. You think we're going to back out of it now? No, I don't think so. And Dr. Fatima Ibrahimi, has invented a new fusion rocket thruster concept which could power humans to Mars and beyond. She must have been reading my book. The physicist who works at the U.S. Department of Energy Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory designed the rocket, which will use magnetic fields to shoot plasma particles, electrically charged gas, into the vacuum of space. Well, this is kind of old news. You have to carry enough gas to shoot into space. Now, this process is found throughout the universe, but it is most observable to humanity on the surface of the sun. When magnetic field lines converge there before separating and then reconnecting again, they produce an enormous amount of energy. Similar energy is produced inside torus-shaped machines known as tokamaks. These were a Soviet invention. Goes way, way back to the late 50s. A magnetic confinement device that is also a leading candidate for a practical nuclear fusion reactor. Yes, but I think they're trying to do is make them larger and larger and larger, and I think they're direction. But if they want to hire me, I'll show them the flaw in their design and we'll fix it. She says, I've been cooking this concept for a while. I had an idea in 2017 after reading Dr. Agnew's paper. I added that. Didn't read the paper. At least she said she didn't. I had the idea in 2017 while sitting on a deck and thinking about the similarities between a car exhaust and the high-velocity exhaust particles created by the National Spherical Torus Experiment known as NSTX, she said. During its operation, this tokamak produced magnetic bubbles called plasmoids that move at around 20 kilometers per second, which seem to be a lot like thrust. Nuclear fusion is the power that drives the sun and stars. It combines light elements in the form of plasma, a hot charged state of matter composed of free electrons and atomic nuclei. That doesn't mean atomic like atomic radiation. It means atomic like the atom. Okay? Atomic nuclei that represent 99% of the visible universe, as I say in my book review, to generate massive amounts of energy. Now, if a reactor functioning on the same principles could be recreated on Earth, it would provide a virtually inexhaustible supply of power to generate electricity. As I say in my book, Asteroid Mining, the Future of Energy. I describe the tokamak to you in that book. Very old design. It's never been successfully used to generate a hot reaction. That is to say, cold fusion has been achieved, which nuclei were fused together but it took more energy to fuse them than we got back out. So, technically speaking, the fusion did occur, but it was useless. Now, Dr. Ibrahimi's new concept performs much better than existing plasma thrusters in computer simulations, generating exhaust with velocities of hundreds of kilometers per second. That's about 10 times what we're doing now. These ion thrusters using neon or krypton gas, as I described last week. And that faster velocity at this beginning of the spacecraft's journey could bring the outer planets within reach of astronauts. And that's provided that you could leave this thrust on for enough time. The ISP is good, but it's not like a jet. A jet has a high ISP because it has air around it. It's compressing and using as part of the thrust. You don't get that in space. There's nothing to gather, compress, and force out the back. So something that's pushing 10, 14 kilometers per second is fast, but it's so small in respect that you get a positive ISP, that is to say the impulses per second, but the ratio is good, but the thrust is not good. You only get maybe less than 100 micronewtons. But with fusion, now you're creating a net amount of energy, and you're pushing this mass out the back at 140 kilometers per second. This is a big difference. Not only are you getting a lot more speed, which force is equal to mass times acceleration, right? You do get more force. Now, obviously, if you increase the size of this to where you're generating a sizable reaction and forcing this through a small area and getting that velocity up, where you, instead of 50 micronewtons, you're producing 500 newtons. Now you're talking some real thrust. Now you put 2 or 3 of those together, you could push a rather large craft very fast through space. And you could even create artificial gravity with it through the acceleration, because that's all gravity is anyway. Now, she stressed that her thruster concepts stems directly from her research into fusion energy. This work was inspired by past fusion work, and this is the first time that plasmoids and reconnection have been proposed for space propulsion. Well, no, not really. I proposed it in 1994. I did it as my senior paper. It's published. Go read it. It was a long time before you as rocket propulsion. We're catching up, okay? I predicted that it wouldn't really be in effect until 2032, but we're getting close. We're getting close. Maybe you can, if you hire me for about a year, I could show you how to do this, and we could be getting to Mars in 70 days instead of 7 months. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat room before I go. How much time do we have in this segment? I think I can cover it. Oh, plenty of time, 12 minutes. All right. Earth Radio. I love the guys down there at Earth Radio. Earth Radio is in Jacksonville, Florida. Dr. Truth and the guys down there have been on their program many times, and I do speak to them offline too. So Karch Gibba is saying, great show on Earth Radio Network last night. Just like the video on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. It's good. Those guys know me, and I'm a longtime supporter of their great work down there on Earth Radio. Welcome to Earth. It's a great program. I greatly support those guys. They do a great job. All right, I want to talk about a real superpower. It's actually been measured. Are you curious? I'm curious too. Intuition. Yeah, intuition. I'm familiar with it. I use it in my writing. I use it in all my scientific inventions. I use intuition. Sorry, it's a superpower. Mainstream science has been catching on to the fact that non-physical aspects of the human being are not only real, but they can be grown and developed into powerful tools for personal development and use. It's true. Non-physical phenomena like intuition, remote viewing, telepathy, and precognition, for example, have been studied at the highest levels of government for decades, actually, since the 60s. I was involved in some of the original programs in the early 60s as a subject. So I know what you're saying is true. Various nations have poured millions, if not billions of dollars into these programs. I didn't see any of it. Or with demonstrated repeated success. But despite this fact, these findings remain heavily unacknowledged, ridiculed, classified, and in many cases just thrown out in the pseudoscience bucket. It's understandable. New information and discoveries have always been heavily opposed and scoffed at by intellectual authorities, especially if these discoveries don't fit within the accepted framework of knowledge. I have been discriminated against many times myself, so I am used to it. There's a general tendency to dismiss ideas that go against the grain and conflict what we previously convinced ourselves is truth. And, that convincing is sometimes more than academic. Sometimes it's institutional. Sometimes it's practically religious. I went to work for a company, an international company, a Japanese company that was a division of Toyota. And typically what they do is they make catalytic converters for your car. And the catalytic converter, the structure of it is a ceramic like can with little tiny squares in it. So it creates kind of a flow through. But the ceramic itself provides a lot of surface area, a lot of microscopic morphology. And ceramic has an affinity for highly charged precious metals, like platinum, rhodium, and palladium, which happen to be the metals that are used in catalytic converters. It lowers the temperature at which burned hydrocarbons will complete their oxidation from carbon monoxide to carbon dioxide, just to make a long story short. Now, these structures, these ceramic skeletons, we'll call them. I don't want to use the actual industry name. The skeletons are coated with this precious metal. The precious metal is then encased in a stainless steel can, which is then welded to your exhaust system, and your engine pushes the exhaust gases through the catalytic converter, and it helps in completing the oxidation process. For a long, long time, the issue with these skeletons is that when they were dipped into the highly acidic solution that contained the precious metals in solution, the precious metals would then jump onto the ceramic very quickly at first and then kind of asymptotic. So it wouldn't ever really get 100% of the metal onto the ceramic, but pretty darn close to it, like 99.25%. The issue is that when you look at the skeleton from top to bottom, when this was dipped into the solution and brought back out, the bottom of the skeleton had a lot of metals because, as I said, this is a very fast absorption and very slow up here. And so what would happen is you get a lot of metals down here and not many metals up here, and so you didn't get the benefit of the entire catalytic converter. And so I was in a meeting one day, a design meeting, high-level design meeting. We're going to spend millions of dollars to try to solve this issue. Millions. And they've been working on it for decades, since the 80s. And all the world's best scientists are in this room, and they're looking at the machine that they're getting ready to dip these skeletons into, to what we call impregnate them with the metal. And they said, well, what we need to do is we need to dip up and down faster in it so that we can spread the metal out more evenly on the ceramic skeleton. And I looked at it. I took my pen and I started doing some calculations on the table. And I raised my hand. And they said, "What? What do you know about this? You know nothing about it." I said, "Well, actually, I did some calculations. I divided this up into 4 sections, 25% each section. And I added the amount of time that each section was actually under the surface of the solution. And as it turns out, the bottom 25% is in the solution longer than the rest of the skeleton, and then less, and then less, and then finally the top section is actually in there very little. Because if I look at this as a cycle, like a wheel, okay, the bottom of it is a very large wheel, so it takes a long time to turn around. Then the next one is a smaller wheel, next one's smaller, and the next one's really tiny, so it's really going very quickly. The issue is that it doesn't spend much time on the road. It doesn't spend much time in the puddle. So actually, what I would say is, instead of dipping this up and down a lot of times, which I would say is very hard on this machine, because it's a big machine and it's a lot of money tied up in this machine, you're going to wear it out quickly, is that you dip it very slowly. In fact, I would say over the impregnation period, which is about 30 minutes all the way around this carousel, I would say you only dip it 4 times. Dip it once and keep it there. Keep it there for about 7 minutes. Then raise it out and dip it again and leave it there again for about 7 minutes. And then do it one more time and leave it until the end of the 30 minutes. They all looked around the room and said, "How can that be?" I said, "Intuition. I don't know anything about what you're doing, but I just did the calculations in my head, and I'm telling you, you're doing it exactly opposite. So if you do it my way and you let me cut this piece up and put it in the XRF to see what percentage of metals is in each quadrant of this skeleton, I'll prove it to you." And so we did, and I was right. And I revolutionized a $50 billion a year industry. 1 minute. That's intuition. So exactly what is intuition? It's a good way to describe it, I guess, a gut feeling. It's a sense, or it's a feeling about something. It's arrived to some sort of truth about something, an event, or an experience without using any type of analytic reasoning. Intuition has been measured, which is why the U.S. Office of Naval Research admitted to developing methods to develop and measure this phenomenon for their soldiers. I quote, "We have to understand what gives rise to this so-called sixth sense," says Peter Squire, a program officer in the Navy's Expeditionary Maneuver Warfare and Combating Terrorism Department. Today's Navy scientists place less emphasis on trying to understand the phenomenon theoretically and more on using technology to examine this mysterious process, which Navy scientists assure the public is not based on superstition. If the researchers understand the process, there may be ways to accelerate it and possibly spread the powers of intuition throughout military units. There is. You put one of us in the unit. That's how you do it. I can't teach anybody to do what I do. I can tell you what it feels like. I can tell you what it looks like. I can tell you when I open my eyes and I see photons bouncing off the things in this room or on a highway, I can see that just fine with my eyes, because the photons are striking the rods and cones in my eyes, creating electrical impulses, and my brain interprets that as real. But I also see something else all the time, sometimes more than others, but it's always there. There's another world. There's another energy structure around us. It's independent and it overlaps time and space. And I can see it. And sometimes, quite often, I can see what's missing, or I see what's going to happen, or I see where the baseball is going to fall out of space. So I stick my glove out and in the glove it falls. I can't teach that to you. I can show you that it's real. As mentioned before, many interesting abilities that go beyond the conscious mind and utilize what some would call metaphysical aspects have long been used by governments and intelligence agencies. They do. They use us. They're afraid of us. We're not typically fit for military service because of it, because we can see through the crap around us, but they do use us. Perhaps one day the human race will use these abilities for progress instead of fighting. It's like technology. Do we use it for the good of humanity, or do we use it to build more powerful and destructive bombs and weaponry? And this is why they study it. One reason or the other. Either side. Dr. Judith Orloff, assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA. Second, EFR is going to go to break. We'll continue this while you guys are on break. This is why we believe that the greatest and most potent form of change comes from within. She says, in my private practice, I work with women executives who come to me to develop their intuition. They see it as a superpower to use in all decisions at work as well as a guide for how to be good leaders and organizers. According to Dr. Orloff, scientists believe intuition operates through the entire right side of our brain, the brain's hippocampus, to our gut. Digestive system has neurons as well, as we were describing earlier for you. So when these neurotransmitters in your gut, they actually fire up, you may be feeling either butterflies or queasy sensations. You need to pay attention to these. This is when something is going to happen. This is when something is making sense. It's no accident we use the term intuition and gut feeling interchangeably, because science has now shown us that our gut has a brain of its own. We also realize there are 3 chakras here. There are 3 chakras from the 5th to the 2nd, okay, that are also here in this area. The gut, the center abdomen, the heart, and the lower throat. Now, when you get much lower than that, it's a little more primal. It's a little more lusty. But the butterflies in the stomach, the feeling like your breath has just been taken away, or a warm glow in the heart and lower throat area. These are areas that you need to pay attention to, because your biological transducer is lighting up. It's telling you to pay attention. It takes practice to know what you're listening to and what you're seeing. But predicting the unpredictable, critical analysis, and practical implications of predicting or predictive anticipatory activity are what we're talking about here. We would call it precognition. Something is going to happen. I told you the story a lot of times. When I walked out on the front porch, my mother was sitting there smoking a cigarette in Southern California, Long Beach. We lived not far from the Long Beach power plant, and it was a warm summer day. I think it wasn't really hot, but it was warm. And I told my mother, you know, I'm just 10. Just came back from the mountains, like, I don't know, a month before. And I said, I think the power plant's going to explode. And no, just a few seconds, 10, 15 seconds later, it exploded. And I mean a huge window rattling explosion. Steam and metal and everything went into the air like it was hit with a bomb. Now, my mother, she started crying because she was just prone to do that kind of stuff. She was crying because the power plant exploded and it was scary. But she was also crying because I saw it. I saw it, and I said something about it before it happened. Now, my grandmother was very intuitive this way. She had a natural ability, and she taught me I had that natural ability when I was 4. And it freaked him out. It freaked him out. It skipped my mother. She did not have the ability at all. She used to force my grandmother to sit down and run a Ouija board or read cards, or because she didn't have the ability, and she wanted to be able to see the future and to be able to do things about it. But my grandmother had it in hearts. I had it in spades. I guess I don't know if my kids have it, but I'm watching my grandkids very closely. The body is truly an amazing puzzle, and we probably haven't moved beyond the tip of the iceberg when it comes to discovering what we are actually capable of. And bring TFR back in now. Okay, TFR is back live with us. The experiments that they conducted in the 60s that I was involved with, of course, tried to quantify the ESP. They wanted to know about the precognition. But I think this is just scratching the surface of this ability. It isn't really the true value of this power. The power comes in a hyperactive ability to learn, to look at a book, let's say, and instead of reading all 400 pages of the instructions, you read 4. 1 page every 100 pages, and yet you absorb the entire book. That's what it's like. I don't know how to explain it any other way. To be able to look at something, a puzzle, and intuitively figure out how it goes together, how it comes apart, is the gift. That doesn't mean I can sit down at the table and do a 1,000-piece puzzle. I can't. I can do it just like everybody else does. Work on the borders first and then the colored areas, and eventually it all gets done as a team effort. Because every time we sit down at the table, somebody takes a stab at it for a while till you get your patience with it. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is getting a box of parts, like an engine in a box or a complex piece of analytical equipment in a box. No directions, no theory of operation, nothing. And taking those parts and putting it together and making it work. I could do it since I was 10 years old, since I was riding a bicycle. We used to go dumpster diving. You know what that is? How many people in the chat room know what dumpster diving is? I'll wait for the answers to come in. But in Southern California, there are all kinds of factories. And these factories can be 10,000 square feet. Just there'll be a dozen of them in one row, like a strip mall of factories. And the factories have one thing in common. Oh, you dumpster dived at IKEA? Well, that's a waste of time, isn't it? All these factories faced an alley. And the alley was where all the dumpsters were. The trash trucks would go and dump all the trash and haul it away. So what we used to do is ride our bicycles down the alleys between the factories after they closed, and we would dumpster dive. And the factories made stuff. You remember the little Dymo label makers? You could twist the dial to A, B, C, Q, whatever, and you could emboss and then peel the adhesive off and stick that label on stuff. There was a company called Dymo that made those things. And they threw away parts. They threw away the handles, the springs, the latch, everything they threw away. Of course, they didn't throw instructions away. But what I could do is dig through their trash, their discards, and I gathered up all the parts. And I figured out how they went together. So I built my own Dymo guns. I even threw screws away. Everything that was needed to put it together. And I made hundreds of those things and sold them in the middle school. It was a way to make money. And one of the other factories made 22 caliber revolvers. That was a little bit trickier because what they would do, they wouldn't throw frames away. They would snap the barrels off the frames and then throw them away. But that didn't stop me from figuring out how to put guns together. All the parts, everything. I could work the entire action and everything. I never made a complete gun. The barrel wasn't there. But I could make enough of the gun that I knew how it worked. All kinds of stuff. It didn't matter. The experiments that they run indicate that the human body can actually detect randomly delivered stimuli that occur 1 to 10 seconds in advance. In other words, the human body seems to know of an event and react to that event as though it has already occurred, even though it hasn't occurred yet. Now, what occurs in the human body before these events are physiological changes that are measured in the cardiopulmonary, in the skin, and in the nervous system. It's pretty cool. I talk about it in the book, Remembering the Future, because I interviewed and I was baseball players. Baseball players, once the ball gets to about 90 plus miles an hour from the pitcher's mound, it becomes biologically impossible to hit that ball with a stick. Biologically impossible. There's not enough time for the vision to go in the eye, hit the optic nerve, reach the brain, be interpreted, track it, send a signal to the rest of the body, the torso, the arms, the hands, and everything, twist the body and swing that stick to intercept that ball in mid-flight. It is biologically impossible to do. Once the ball reaches a velocity where the amount of time it takes to go from the mound to the catcher's glove is less than 3/4 of a second. That's about 90 miles an hour. After that, you have to precog where the ball's going to be. Something about that professional baseball player that he is able to see where that ball's going to be 0.375 times out of 1. In other words, in 10 swings, 3.75 times, or actually 3.75 times, they can hit that ball out of 10 swings. That's 0.375, so it's 37.5%. That's very amazing. In fact, it's so amazing that the difference between a pro player and a semi-pro player is that 90 mile an hour mark. Now, when I was playing baseball, 88 miles an hour was a pretty fast fastball. It still is today. They're still hard to hit, especially if you put junk on them. But once the ball hits 90, it's biologically impossible to hit that ball. And yet there are people that can hit 95, 96, 97, 98 mile an hour fastballs pretty consistently. It's from this ability to precog. Now, this is a very primitive expression of it, but intuition, argues Gerd Gigerenzer, a director at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development, is less about suddenly knowing the right answer and more about instinctively understanding what information is unimportant and can thus be discarded. Gigerenzer, author of the book Gut Feelings, The Intelligence of the Unconscious, says that he is both intuitive and rational. In my scientific work, he says, I have hunches. I can't explain always why I think a certain path is the right way, but I need to trust it, and I go ahead. I also have the ability to check these hunches and find out what they are about. That's the science part. Now, in private life, I rely on instinct. For instance, when I first met my wife, he says, I didn't do computations, nor did she. A paper published in 2008 by Dean Radin, chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I know these people very well. Intuition is widely regarded as a key source of inspiration in medical diagnosis, in technological innovation, in business decisions, artistic achievement, and scientific discovery. Based upon an analysis of the lives of numerous scientific icons, Ruth Bernstein concluded that virtually without exception, the greatest mathematicians and scientists assert that the development of this pictorial, visual, kinesthetic, or generally sensual algorithm is the basis for scientific thinking. But what is intuition? Really, what is it? Given its central role in advancing science and civilization, one might expect that this topic has been a keen subject of inquiry, like witchcraft, especially within academic psychology, for a long, long time. I'd say more than 100 years. Surprisingly, even recently, it has been studiously ignored. This may be because the quasi-magical, non-rational nature of intuition presents an embarrassing challenge to science, and even more embarrassing to managers that don't have it. Nothing will frighten a manager more than an employee with intuition. Trust me on this. And if I were to give you any piece of information that would be valuable to you forever, it is to realize this very moment you are self-employed. Yes, you may wear a uniform and your checks may come from a company and you 401k, and I got all that. They can tell you when to be to work. They can tell you when to go home, when to take a break. I got all that. But in reality, you are in business for yourself. You are selling what you can do to them, and they're buying it from you. And when you stop being valuable to them, or when your value is less than the pain in the butt you've become, you're no longer going to be working there. That's the truth. The sooner you realize that, the happier you will be. The more in control of your life position you will be. Yes, Andy, dumpster diving is an art in itself. You don't want to get it on you, but you need to get in there and find out what the good stuff is. So, surprisingly, of course, these managers are very intimidated by people with intuition. Intuitive knowledge does not appear to function like the methodological interferences associated with rational thought. It arises in a flash, or out of the blue, or in between activities. I don't know how to describe it any other way. Sometimes with correct answers to thorny science and technological problems, elegant solutions to complex mathematical theorems, and complete scores for intricate musical compositions. I can remember one time I was at the kitchen table. I was very young. I think I was in the 3rd grade, or just come through the 3rd grade. We were sitting at a kitchen table that was glass. You remember those glass top kitchen tables? It was like a wrought iron steel frame, and you had this glass top on it. And the glass was kind of not smooth glass. It was like frosted glass, and in the glass was chicken wire. Remember that? The square chicken wire glass tables? It was tempered glass, but it also had steel in it, so the table itself was pretty tough. It was just stylish in the 60s. Anyway, we're sitting there, as I remember, eating oatmeal, and my brother, who's 9 years older than I was, now you got to consider I'm 8 years old, or 9 years old, and he's 18, so he's getting ready to start college. And he says, "So Brooks, if I were to ask you how many squares are on this table in the little chicken wire, what would you say?" And I said, "Well, probably what I would do is I'd count the number of squares down this side and count the number of squares down that side, and I'd multiply them together, and that's how I would calculate how many squares there are. But that's a lot of numbers. That's a lot of counting. So probably I would count half of it, or maybe a quarter of it. If I could determine what a quarter was, maybe it's only 9 squares here and 25 squares here. And I would then multiply 9 times 25, and then that times 4, and that's how I'd find out how many squares are on the table." And he about dropped his spoon in the oatmeal. I hadn't done any geometry before. I didn't know what that was. I intuited it. I figured it out myself. And I delivered the answer to him in a very short and concise manner. And I always blew my brother's mind after that summer in the Sierra Nevadas. So you should stay aware. 26 adults experienced using what's called heart math techniques, and who could sustain a heart coherent state completed 2 rounds of study protocols approximately 2 weeks apart. Half of the participants completed the protocols after they intentionally achieved a heart coherent state for 10 minutes. Pretty hard to do. The other half completed the same procedures without first achieving heart coherence. They then reversed the process for the second round of monitoring, and the first group not becoming heart coherent before completing the protocols, and the second group becoming heart coherent before. The point was to test whether heart coherence affected the results of the experiment. What do you think happened? Well, participants were told the study's purpose was to test stress reactions, and they were unaware of its actual purpose. The screen stayed blank for 6 seconds. The participants' psychological data was recorded by a special software program, and then one by one a series of 45 pictures was displayed on the screen. Each picture was displayed for 3 seconds, evoked either by a strong emotional reaction or a calm state. After each picture, the screen went blank for a period of 10 seconds. Participants repeated this process for all 45 pictures, 30 of which were known to evoke a calm response and 15 a strong emotional response. Now, the results of the experiment were quite fascinating. The participants' brains and their hearts responded to information about the emotional quality of the pictures before the computer flashed them. This means that the heart and brain were both responding to future events. The results indicated that the responses happened on average 4.8 seconds before the computer selected the pictures. That's very mind-altering. Even more profound was the data showing that the heart received information for the brain. It is the first registered, all this information is first registered in the heart area, then up to the brain, where we can logically relate what we are intuiting, and finally down to the gut, or where something stirs. This study showed that the heart alongside the brain has some sort of intuitive intelligence. So, this is what we're talking about. Now, there's a practice that we do, and this is where you take 2 people who are trying to exchange information, and they connect heart to heart. So it's left side of the body to left side of the body at the breast. Now you can put the arm around behind and one on the shoulder or whatever, but the idea is to place the 2 hearts as close as they can possibly come to one another, and then see if information can be moved from one person to the other. It works very well. You'll notice that in Freemasonry and in some of the dark arts, it's exactly the opposite. You connect the right hand and the left hand goes on the shoulder, and you actually pull the right side to the right side, opposite of the heart. The hearts are exposed to the air, not connected to one another. It's kind of interesting that this left brain connection is more important to the dark arts than the right brain connection. It's just one of the things that you notice. Now, these days, it's not just knowing information and facts that create change. We all have that. It's changing us. We change, and then the average reality changes after that. How we go about communicating and reassessing the underlying stories, the ideas and the beliefs that form our world, that's what changes things. We have to practice these things if we truly want to change. And I'm thinking about developing a class on this, but I'm not really qualified to do it. I'm able to do it, but does that mean I can teach someone else how to do it? I don't know. I'd have to think about it some more. It's one of the reasons why I like the face-to-face, in-person events where we go to conferences and we can actually physically connect. When I can physically touch someone, I can learn so much about them in such a short amount of time. Doing it on the camera, I can still do it. It takes time. Weaknesses, strengths, fears, challenges. I'll just call them disconnections. You got all the equipment together. It's just not connected together where it works. So I can help with that. What is that? Oxytocin plays a big part? I don't think so. I wouldn't do drugs while doing this. I just think I don't think I would fare well. And I don't think that your Merkaba can stay balanced if you are doing drugs. It's going to be tilted. Something about it is going to be skewed. Because the body is designed to work as a biological transducer, altering the state of that artificially, either, and I mean any kind of drug. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't, drink a bottle of wine. There are properties about wine and the heavy dose of antioxidants that you take in when you're drinking wine. I don't mean drunk, but I mean something opens up in the brain when you start doing wine. Now, it does too with alcohol itself, but wine seems to be a better, more pure connection. But I don't really agree with drugs. I would try to stay away from that. I don't think that's a good way to go. Just my thoughts about it. All right. Light. We talk about light a lot in Remembering the Future, the physics of the soul and time travel. Because we realize that light is supposed to be this speed limit in space, and yet thought is so much faster than that. There must be a way to fold space or to connect subspace to other areas. We know that other universes are sending us information. We know that other areas of the galaxy where elements that form our Earth, which form our body, because we consume things that are made from the Earth, so the molecules that are in the Earth become the molecules of our body. And the molecules of our body then are connected with other molecules, other ions, that have also been created by a supernova in space. Supernovas create new matter in 360 degrees, and this blast of energy, this creative energy, goes out in all directions. So by the time it reaches Earth, it's also reaching a further distant place in another part of the galaxy. So in a very real way, the ions that are all created at the same time are entangled one with another. That means that information that affects those molecules in that sphere will also affect the molecules in this sphere. I believe, from a scientist's point of view, this is the basis of astrology. When you are conceived and your mother begins putting together all of the molecules that will fill in the electromagnetic image of you, your fetus, whatever you were in the womb, it is selecting from matter that is being exposed to a set of star influences in this area around its orbit around the sun, and in this place in the galaxy. Because, as you know, the solar system's also moving through space, and Earth is moving around the sun. So during that 365 and a quarter days around the sun, you're exposed to the matter of this Earth. It's exposed to different star influences, different electromagnetic and gravitational forces. And I think also exposed to the entangled particles that are being used to build your body. So I think, from my point of view, astrology is much more linked to the day of your conception than it is the day of your birth. Now, most people are born 36 weeks after gestation, but not all. I was born almost 2 months early, so technically speaking, I should be a Leo, but I'm not. I'm a Gemini. But what does that mean? Nothing. It means absolutely nothing, except that my body was exposed to the star forces of a Leo, not a Gemini. I should have been born in August, not May, or in late July, not May. So that means that the traits that I display should be influenced by the star forces that are influencing the matter of a Leo and not a Gemini. And I think it's an intelligent way of looking at it. Anyway, we're out of time once again for America Free Radio, for X Squared Radio, coming to you from the America Free Radio studios here outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I want you to go look for the good in others and help it to grow a little bit every day, and before long, we'll have saved the planet. We'll see you Wednesday night right here, 8 o'clock. I love you all. Good to one another out there. And do what you can. Stay peaceful. Stay out of the way. A lot of big boys are going to be roughing it up this week, and you can stay safe.